After that, we're going to have the AQMD presentation, and the floor will be open for the stakeholders to ask them questions if they would like to, in accordance with the schedule that we have. But again, without a quorum, the board is not going to ask any questions or engage in any discussion on them. And the third item is public comment for any item that is not on the agenda, simply for us to have. However, Francis, I would ask you to stop typing because we're not having an official meeting. So just be on standby in case we have a quorum later. If we have a quorum at any time, I will reopen the meeting and continue our official business.
How many do you need for a quorum?
Our quorum requires 6 out of 11. So, with that, I'm going to open the floor for public officials. Who's here who would like to address the public? 1, 2, okay. Can I have gentleman from CD12, would you like to step up? Oh, I'm sorry. There's a mic there, if you'd like to take it off the stand.
I can protect the back row.
Whatever you want, whatever you want. Good to see you, Colin.
Good to see you. Hey everybody, I'm Colin Cruz, Senior Field Deputy for Councilmember Mitchell Englander. I just got a couple of quick things. First of all, everybody on the Port Orange Neighborhood Council, we have upcoming conversations with councils. I don't know if you've received an invite yet or not, but it's on March the 5th, which is a Monday. It's at Hex Labs in Chatsworth, and the topic of discussion will be homelessness. Next up, the council member has recently brought on a couple of new staffers. They are our new rapid response team. We've always had a rapid response component, but it largely fell to like myself and some of my colleagues to go out and take care of, like bulky item pickup. If sanitation hasn't gotten to it in a timely manner, we'd go out and grab it. But now we have 2 young LAPD cadets that are on patrol for us, and that's all they do is they drive around the district finding stuff. So it's very proactive, and they're not just out there picking up bulky items as they spot problems, whether it's a storm drain that looks to be clogged, potholes, etc. They're reporting all that stuff to 311, and if it's something they can go out and just lay hands on and take care of, they're knocking it out. So they're, like I said, they're on patrol 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and they're doing a really bang-up job. It's great to have them on the team, and being able to be proactive instead of reactive is very, very important. Because again, I wasn't on patrol all day, just driving around looking for stuff. I had my other duties to attend to, and they're just actively out there finding issues and taking care of them. Last but not least, the council member has put together a special task force on homelessness that combines the LAPD HOPE team with the Bureau of Sanitation's Rapid Response team, as well as the Department of Transportation's Parking Enforcement. And they go out, the HOPE team now goes out in our district 4 days a week as opposed to just a couple. This is all being funded through our office. There's nothing else like it in the city. And then 3 days a week, LAPD HOPE, Sanitation's Rapid Response, and DOT goes out as a task force. So as HOPE sees what are starting out as minor issues, they can address it with the environmental compliance officers as well as the rapid response team before an encampment grows and gets out of hand. And then when they have with DOT there as well, with the RV issues that we have, a lot of them in Chatsworth, but also in other areas of the district, DOT is able to go out and chalk tires, do enforcement, and then also if a vehicle has to be impounded, DOT is there to monitor the vehicle, make sure that it is impounded without hanging up our HOPE team and our other resources, because sometimes it takes the haulers a while to get to the RV. In the past it's taken hours. So while DOT waits for the impound to show up, he can be out chalking other tires, addressing other issues while they get back, and HOPE and the Sanitation's Rapid Response can continue on their list of things to do without having to just be, stuck there waiting. And that is pretty much it for my report right now. Yes, sir.
Hey, Colin, thanks for being here.
Sure.
Thank you for addressing the homeless issue. That's an important issue. See, that's important to us. We'd like to offer the councilman an invitation to partner with us more to address the Aliso Canyon Gold Rush Schoolhouse. So, Councilman's been very quiet on this. It's right here. It's right here. So, can you please tell us what he's doing?
Well, I mean, he has called for the shutdown of the facility. I mean, it's not in the city limits, but he has called for the shutdown of the facility during the gas leak. I think you all know how active we were. We called for the cleanups. We called for this facility to be shut down. We were against it reopening. So I think.
What's he done lately that you could tell us about? Because you're right, you did say that. That was roughly a year ago?
Well, again, we don't have jurisdiction over the site.
22 wells are within the city limits.
Well, I mean, he has called for the shutdown of the site.
Yeah, can we do more?
I mean, I think our office is always happy to assist, absolutely.
Yeah, how about a letter to Governor Brown saying this, you know, this is impacting my constituents?
I can certainly take that back to the office, yes, sir.
Can you bring that back on the board?
I will. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Colin, appreciate you being here.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
All right.
Colin, great to see you.
Thank you.
Very much for being here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Eric Werner.
Eric, sorry.
Not a problem.
Eric, do you need a mic?
I'll just yell to
This is not a competition for who can be louder.
the loudest
You can
here.
use a mic.
No, I'm all right. So yeah, my name's Eric Werner. I'm from Assemblyman Dante Acosta's office. I mostly just wanted to introduce myself. We kind of shuffled around who's covering what area in our district. One of our field reps left, and we got a couple new ones who came in. So I know Taylor Criddle had been handling this area for a little while. He's still handling most of the Aliso Canyon things. So if you guys have questions about that, feel free to ask me. I'll forward those questions along to him. He can get back to you with some correspondence about those issues, just because he's a little bit more knowledgeable about those than I am. I just wanted to say that you know, the Assemblyman's in session right now. This last year we were able to pass a couple bills, one of which was a privacy bill, helped to strengthen laws to help protect our privacy, especially when it comes to pictures of ourselves being used on the internet by people we don't want, you know, things like that. Right now he's also trying to push to pass his foster youth bill. Last year he had promoted that bill as a way to help foster kids get into, basically into good situations. You know, historically speaking, most foster youth have ended up in some rough situations, and he's trying to allocate some money to get them into some extracurricular programs and, you know, funding for good, you know, putting them in good homes and things like that. Some more details, obviously, I can always talk to you guys about that later. But it was killed by the governor last year, so we're trying to get it in writing this year. As far as what's going on, you know, in session right now, the gas tax is still being debated, even though it was passed last year. You know, the Republican caucus and a lot of the assembly members are fighting to get that taken away again, you know, or remove that gas tax. So we're gonna kind of see what goes on with that. Obviously, I know a lot of you probably are opposed to it just by the virtue of the fact that you guys drive everywhere. So, you know, there's that. Otherwise, you know, we are having a town hall on April 19th in Northridge. So it'll be down in the Northridge Rec Center. So it'll be probably the closest one to this area. Although we might be looking to have a couple other ones in the, you know, Port Ranch, Round Hills general area. We also are looking at having some community chats with the assemblymen in the Porter Ranch, Grand Hills area. We're just trying to figure out some dates and some sites for that. But April 19th, the Northridge Rec Center will definitely be happening. So, yeah, if you guys have any further questions, go for it. Otherwise, nice being here.
When is the town hall on the 19th? Is that the day?
Oh, it'll be like, I think we have it set up for 6 as the starting time, 6 or 6:30. And we'll be sending out flyers as it gets closer to that date to give you a confirmation on that. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
And Jeremy?
Hello. Hi, my name is Jeremy Wolf, and I work for Senator Henry Stern. He sends his regards. He's in Sacramento right now, or else he would be here. And a lot of times our district director, Kevin Taylor, comes to these meetings, but he had a conflict tonight, so I'm happy to be here. And so I just want to report on a few Aliso Canyon related issues. So we're still fighting to shorten 10 years. It's outrageous. The good news is there's an election in November, and there's going to be a new person with the office that can change that. So we're looking forward to that. And then with the CCST report that came out, we have a lot of issues with it, but there's a few good takeaways we took. And one of them is the chemical disclosure. And so our office is looking for some legislative ways that we can make that, you know, what the chemicals are. It shouldn't be a secret. So our office is really trying to push for that, to disclose the chemicals that were released into this community. And also the risk management plans that are tailored to each specific facility. You know, every gas storage facility has different issues. You know, Aliso Canyon, there's fault lines. It's highly densely populated in this area, and you know, these things aren't taken into consideration. So we're really looking into that. And we want to make sure that the regulators are actually enforcing these laws and not just, you know, saying that they're going to do it. And we're pushing to make sure, and it should be by law, but an independent review every 5 years by DOGGR or the PUC. Hopefully, if it's 5 years from now, the facility is shut down. But, you know, we are still pushing to get this facility shut down. Henry's very outspoken against it. And, you know, and then another big issue we're working on that's going to take a lot more time is ways to transition away from gas and fossil fuels, and especially in this community. So our office is open. Please reach out to us with any issues. And, you know, Henry loves Porter Ranch, and it's good to see you guys. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ben, 1 second.
Sorry about
There's a question. Matt.
So, what's Senator Stern doing about the Senate Oversight Committee hearing regarding Aliso Canyon?
That is a good question. I don't have an answer for that right now. We should know more in the next few weeks, but I do not have an answer right now.
All right, so, SB 57 has been stalled for quite some time. I don't think he plans on bringing that back up. But if you guys are aware that, you know, there's every kind of violation of SB 380
Senator Pavlik.
going on in that facility. Henry Stern pretty much wrote that bill. What are you guys doing about that?
So, what do you say? What do we do? Do regulation or enforcement?
Well, it's a state law that's been written into law, and they're violating the law.
Yeah, he was the senior policy advisor
Yeah.
when they wrote that. I don't have a satisfactory answer to that, but I will get back to you, and I'll talk to our team for a specific answer for that.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Just a quick comment. Jason, thank you very much. Please bring back to the Senator that we really appreciate him, as busy as he is, taking time to send a representative that hit the Aliso Canyon issue straight on and not talking about picking up cover. Thank you very much.
From the city, go ahead.
Hi everyone.
You want a mic?
I think I should be fine. Thank you. My name is Francis and I'm from the Department of Transportation. I'm here in place of Ken Rusman, who's the West Valley District Engineer. And I'm here to address any concerns that the Neighborhood Council may have regarding transportation-related issues. And hopefully I might have some answers to questions you may have. And if not, hopefully I could pass along whatever concerns you might have to our
Can
district
you grab
engineer.
the mic? Nobody can hear back here.
Sure, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Yes, you can use this, and
Okay, thank you.
we can't, board cannot ask you those questions today.
Okay.
Stakeholders can ask you if they have them, and we will have to re-engage for the board to ask you its questions.
Sure, okay.
But
You can ask.
Okay. And did anyone have any DOT-related questions that I might be able to answer? Yes.
Yes, I was shocked to find out the worst intersection in LA is Reseda and Devonshire.
Yes, yes.
And so I guess my question is, what can you do about that?
Yeah, right now,
It's not, we don't want to be number one.
oh, I know. I agree, it's definitely not the best title to be holding. We're running collision reports so that we can see what kind of patterns we're experiencing at that location and seeing based off of those patterns what kind of tools we have available to us to address those situations. So basically, our solutions are driven by whatever collision patterns are occurring at that location. So we're currently investigating that, and whenever we have a solution, we'll be able to get back to you.
But you've got to use what the data, obviously, it got to be number one because of all the data you already have.
Definitely, it has. So now we're just gonna have to analyze that data and see what kind of patterns we're noticing in the data, the collision data, so that we can see what kind of solutions we could use to implement to address those situations. Yes.
Last Saturday, the
Yes.
And these are not teenagers,
Mhm.
these are grown men.
Yeah.
Racing up and down Cessna in these probably $2 million cars. What
Mhm.
can you do about that?
Yeah.
This is early Saturday mornings.
Oh, wow, yeah. So for those locations, we usually get, requests, so I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with our request logging system.
By the time I chased them, they were gone. They didn't even
Yeah.
have license plates.
Unfortunately, no. We always rely on LAPD with regards to enforcement, so when it comes to issues of that nature, it will be LAPD who's gonna have to do the enforcing for that. For certain streets, unfortunately for Devonshire, you said Devonshire Mason it was?
They were up here on Cessna.
Cessna.
Cessna, yeah. For those locations, a lot of people have requested speed humps. However, for locations like those, sometimes they don't qualify due to speed limits existing on the streets, because if it's too fast, then even if we were to put speed humps, not only is it trying to deter those people, but it's also a hazard to people who are not racing on the location. So we usually go to stop signs or traffic signals, and it really depends on the location. So if you have a specified segment on Cessna that you're concerned about, if you could put that into our system, we receive it in the West Valley District Office, and we go ahead and evaluate that location for whether it's stop signs or traffic signals that are appropriate.
Any other questions? Would you mind just stating your name and phone number, so if anybody wants to reach you, how they can reach you?
Sure. So my name is Francis Chuitoko, and unfortunately I didn't memorize my phone number. But
Microphone.
I know.
Turn it off, please.
I was trying to get that not as noisy as it was. And our phone number is going to be 818-774-4306. So that's our contact phone number for the West Valley District Office.
Okay.
I was like, hesitant to pick up this mic.
We'll lower
Sorry
the
about the noise.
Anybody else?
Francis Chuitoko. Francis.
Let's spell the last name.
Yeah, the last name is Chuatoco.
Okay, Colin, I'd like to apologize to you. We appreciate you being here, and we appreciate the councilman engaging with us. I can't control what a stakeholder says to you, but I apologize. Thank you. Okay. Without further ado, we're going to move to the next item, which is the presentation from the Air Quality Management District. Give me a minute so I can help set it up. The what? Sure. Just, we just don't want to tripping hazard, that's all. Actually, yeah. You can take this. And we have a stand right there. Nope.
Nobody shows up by 7:30, I'll go home.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know the line was to move. No. Oh, we're good, sorry, Jay. You can stay up here.
Okay, thank you.
Just a second, just a second. I want to say a few words. Just a little better?
Yes, perfect. Okay. In case anyone is interested, there are paper copies of the presentation available over there at the side table. This presentation is also available on our website, aqmd.gov. So if you want it electronically, you can also download it there. So.
1 second.
Oh,
Just give me a minute. Lower the volume from back there. But we've asked AQMD to limit it to 20 minutes. And we will have 30 minutes after that for stakeholder questions and comments. And I will control the time. And then at the end of the 20 and 15-minute period, we'll close this item and move to the next item. So with that, it is 10 to 7. I'm sorry.
What's the difference between this and?
There's no difference. This is a meeting we're going to have, and that is the time for this meeting. For this item. Go ahead.
So we are having a meeting, right?
We're having a presentation.
I know, but.
And stakeholder
You guys
questions.
are controlling the,
There's a time on it.
and how many minutes? You guys don't have a board meeting tonight.
So we got
That
all
is how
night.
we're going to manage the item.
So what's coming after
You
this?
shouldn't wait for your
Public comment
And then we're leaving?
on items. It depends. If we get a quorum, we'll go back to business. If not, we would leave.
So you're 20 minutes
may I
for
make a
such an important
suggestion?
issue.
No.
May I make a suggestion?
No.
AQMD, in
Craig,
fairness
Craig,
and to reach out to us,
Craig,
would
you're-
you
Craig.
please stay longer so we can ask some questions?
Craig.
Would you please entertain the conversation? You saw him, I heard you.
You're being insulting.
No, I'm not.
Please sit down and let us continue with the item.
No, that is insulting.
You okay? Please go ahead.
I'm asking the AQMD, would like to.
You will get to ask her the question during the stakeholder question. You will ask her during the stakeholder question.
So to that, I will say, my phone number and email are here. I gave you my phone number and email last time. You know how to contact me if you have further questions. Okay.
How about tonight? We're all here.
Go ahead.
Here's the question and answer session, right? Okay.
So this is
So-
not about building trust, so we're clear. This is not about building trust with the community.
You have your opportunity to answer questions, ask questions.
Why is it
So,
that we can control this meeting if it's not a board meeting? You guys don't have a quorum, you don't have a board meeting, right? AQMD is presenting and we can.
why is it only 20
Alan,
minutes?
Alan, you disagree with me. I appreciate that. I'm giving you the respect of answering, and I don't have to. Let me tell you this. If you don't like what I'm doing, get me out of here. But I have to do what I believe is the right thing to do. You disagree with me, we'll talk about it afterwards. But please, please, do not disrupt, do not disrupt the process. I'm asking you, please,
Who's
do not disrupt the process.
You're punishing the community.
You're not respecting the community.
You're not fulfilling our wishes.
I'm not trying to respect you.
I am not here to change every time somebody asks for something. We are doing this, and I respect the fact that you don't agree with it.
No,
But
I
that's
don't
it.
understand. You do not have a board meeting tonight, right? That means you're just sitting there.
We
just
are
like us.
having a board meeting
Just like
without
us.
the board discussion. It's between the items that do not involve board business, and that's it.
But we cannot control this meeting tonight.
Yes, I can.
I'd
Please,
like to
Joe,
see that.
go ahead.
But it's written.
Okay, so this presentation tonight is just an update and summary of the input that we have received from the community regarding the draft scope of the health study. The key items that I included in this presentation is just a summary of the input received, follow up on some questions from the December 14th, 2017 community meeting here in Porter Ranch, and just a mentioning of a couple next steps. Just a quick recap from something I presented last time about this health study technical advisory group. So basically, between the last meeting and this meeting, we were informed that the neighborhood council has selected the two community members to serve on the HS tag, and those are Dr. Jeffrey Nordella and Dr. Isam Rajuns. So those would be the those are the two community representatives on the HS tag. And again, a recap from last time. I'm not going to read through all the elements, what the purpose of this technical advisory group is, and again, this input that is received from this technical advisory group will be used to inform the RFP that would come out, or sole source contracts that would be basically, the RFP would be soliciting bids for the researchers to do the work that's in the scope as determined by the technical advisory group, with input from, of course, the two community members. We received input from the community through a variety of means. So here at the December meeting, we handed out worksheets. Some folks filled them out and gave them to us at the end of the meeting. We also posted that worksheet on our website and had an opportunity for people to email us their worksheet. We received 24 worksheets in person at the December meeting, and then we received 3 additional worksheets by email. In addition to that, I also, again, gave my email address, and people could email me any suggestions, ideas, comments about the health study draft scope. And I received 1 email during that time. I know here the presentation says through 1:31, but in fact, I did check through yesterday. I did not receive any additional emails regarding the scope of the health study. And of course, we received the input that folks talked about at the December 2017 meeting. Okay? So I'm going to start with a summary of all the worksheets that were received. And one of the reasons is because, the worksheet kind of gives a good template and, gives a little bit of structure to the way that the input is received. So it's just a lot easier to tally and summarize, I guess, the specific input that people were giving on specific questions. So I will mention that because, obviously people could write as many, health symptoms that they were concerned about. The numbers are not going to total to 27. So don't expect the numbers to total to 27. If you wrote, cancers and nosebleeds and rashes, you would tally for cancers and nosebleeds and rashes with no discrimination. Okay. So for the first question that was asked in the worksheet, it was the geographic area defined as the primary affected community. Overwhelmingly, the kind of top responses were kind of Porter Ranch. There are other kind of descriptive descriptions, but kind of largely Porter Ranch area, and also other kind of nearby parts of the San Fernando Valley, Granada Hills, Northridge, Chatsworth. Some people just said broadly communities surrounding Porter Ranch. Other portions of the San Fernando Valley. Some people specified a distance, but this is kind of how the tally goes. But primarily Porter Ranch and portions or all of San Fernando Valley. Okay. For the responses to question 2, so if you remember from last time, we presented kind of 2 main options that our working group had come up with as the kind of highest priority options, given the $1 million budget. Option 1 was the clinical assessment survey of highly affected individuals. Option 2 was a data integration and exposure modeling study. So basically we asked folks to prioritize what would be your first priority, what would be your second priority. This is how the votes kind of came out, responses came out, not votes. On 10 worksheets, folks specified they liked option 1 as their top priority. A number of people, 13, had specified other options as their top priority. Second priority, many people specified option 2, but again, a lot of responses said other options. And so I'm going to go into what people said as other options for question 2. Okay, other proposed study ideas, and obviously, I will say that with kind of free written responses, we tried to summarize as best as we could. So we may not be using the exact term that was on the worksheet, but we try to kind of summarize like the essence of it. So several people mentioned a larger cohort, randomized cohort, long-term study, that I kind of grouped all those who were sort of in the same item. Folks mentioned wanting to study the composition of the emissions coming from the facility and their toxicity. Several people mentioned screening, so like health-related screening, cancer screening, different types of screening. And then there were kind of fewer mentions of other study ideas. And, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I did want to, kind of mention all the different types of responses that folks gave. You can see there's a pretty large range. Some people mentioned just focusing on the air monitoring only. Other people mentioned different types of testing. And then there are also other responses, again, obtain additional funding, which is not specific to this particular study scope, but we understand that this is a desire of the community. Again, transparency, also certainly our desire to be transparent and to, shut down SoCal Gas, again, not something that I can necessarily work into a health study per se. Spend every cent, yes, absolutely, we intend to. And then there are several other responses that we tried to summarize here. Okay. Question number 3, we asked folks to identify the kind of most important health problems that they felt this health study should evaluate. And the top 3, you can see there's a tie in terms of the number of responses. Several people mentioned cancers. Most folks didn't specify the type of cancer, but I think 1 or 2 worksheets specified leukemia as a specific type of cancer. Many people mentioned nosebleeds, and then many people mentioned asthma, allergies, and exacerbations of. And then in addition, I think, again, several responses for headache, nausea, abdominal pains or digestive issues, skin problems, rashes and itching, coughing, and also dizziness and fainting and blackouts. It just goes kind of in descending order. So again, I'm not going to kind of read all the way down to the ones, but this is what we got. This is where we're at. Several people mentioned eye issues, concerns about cardiovascular problems, blood pressure was specified on a couple of worksheets, tiredness, weakness, pulmonary issues, hair loss, memory loss, weight loss, mental health. It keeps going. These are the ones. So, basically mentioned on one worksheet each. So these were, and then there were a couple kind of other responses that weren't specific health problems, but were responsive to this question. Okay. Question 4 asked folks to give us their input on the specific groups of people, in particular for the clinical assessment, because the clinical assessment, the idea was to focus on some of the most highly affected individuals. So kind of really who are your kind of highest priority groups for this kind of clinical assessment survey. And so we asked people for their kind of top priority and then next priority, and kind of overwhelmingly you can see that people said children, people who had symptoms or had diseases, and the elderly. So those were certainly the overwhelmingly these top 3 groups. Other people also mentioned adults, people closest to the facility, folks who are relocated, and also pregnant women. And again, you can see by the numbers, people gave multiple responses, and we tallied multiple times. So, okay. Question 5. So, as you may recall, there were a couple study components where we had mentioned that various agencies may be able to pitch in their own resources that doesn't tap into this $1 million in order to do these specific components. They were community engagement, a records-based epidemiologic study using public data, that's hospital discharge and emergency room data, and toxicity screening assays. Excuse me. I will say that in terms of the suggestions, there wasn't a whole lot of, there wasn't like an overwhelming, kind of top response, I guess. So it was anywhere between 1 and 5 responses maximum. So really, I think folks had lots of different suggestions, different ideas. But here are the ones that were mentioned on 2 to 5 worksheets. Several people mentioned working with NIH, in particular the Gulf and Sister Study protocols, working with Dr. Nardella and his data. A desire to have more outreach and community involvement, which is great. We certainly want this community to be our partner in these efforts. Some people mentioned removing, sorry, I shouldn't be using so many acronyms, but that means LA County Department of Public Health from the efforts. Again, people mentioning concerns about cancer, and that's certainly something that could be addressed in the epi study using public data. People mentioned test kits and additional ones. So these were mentioned on one worksheet each. Again, folks said close the schools, work with the water board, work with various universities, firefighters who got cancer, detox efforts, reducing pressure in the storage facility, mercaptans, just general concerns about health effects and desire for the community to get to decide who gets to do the study. So that's the summary of the input received, and then, of the worksheets. And then I'm not gonna go through every single slide here, but you certainly have it available as a reference. This is the sort of input that was received verbally at the December meeting, and you can see it, it kind of largely reflects more or less what was received on the worksheets. Again, the geographic area, 12-mile radius, 50-mile radius, people said Porter Ranch, San Fernando Valley, or portions of San Fernando Valley. Again, health conditions, again, very similar to what we saw before with the worksheets. I think one that may show up here that I can't remember if it was on that previous list was one person that did mention wanting a study of mortality, so a study of deaths. Populations that folks mentioned, kids and teachers at the schools. Study size, folks felt that 100 is too small and there's a desire for a long-term epi study. Folks gave input on the specific chemicals of interest. Some people said they wanted to study mercaptans. Some people said they didn't want to study mercaptans, or didn't want to limit it to mercaptans at least. Several people mentioned radiation. There were mentions of hex chrome, benzene, chemicals used in fracking, and unknown chemicals from the SoCalGas facility. There was a number of people who gave input on the study approach and data sources that could be used for the study. And so these suggestions included getting the list of chemicals from the facility in terms of their operations and the work done at the wells when they were trying to kill it, and also other facilities, including Termo. Many people mentioned wanting to get data from private doctors' visits. Folks mentioned wind data, wanting to do dispersion modeling. That's certainly something that would be a key part of option 2. And then there are other data sources that folks have mentioned, from an app, environmental sampling, complaints data, school absence data, vet offices, and then the kind of gas storage data for both from SoCalGas in terms of their records, as well as CARB for their flyovers. Folks mentioned wanting to study synergistic effects, wanting to see a comparison group or a control group. Some folks mentioned toxicology, and then also a mention of screening tests, kind of, again, similar to before. Okay. There was input, again, given verbally at the December meeting on how to conduct the study. There was a mention of wanting to give the community the $1 million. There's a mention of not using LA County Public Health. There was also a mention of work with other agencies, in particular ones that we noted down include NIH, the Water Board, and OEHA. There was mention that the community members wanted to participate in the proposal review. There was mentioning of giving the money to Dr. Nordella, but there was also a mention that he had pledged not to take the money, but that he could hire a consultant. And there were a lot of concerns expressed about the existing air monitoring data currently at the facility being run by SoCalGas. And so I tried to, the reason I put a question mark there is because what I heard were concerns. I didn't actually hear anyone say that they wanted better air monitoring, but I'm wondering if maybe that's perhaps the desire in that comment. But I certainly don't want to be putting words into your mouth, so if that's not your desire, you could tell me as well. So, there were some questions I wanted to provide some follow-up to. First was, a lot of folks had mentioned wanting to get NIH involved, and I think I just wanted to, I'm not sure that we gave a really complete answer last time, and still not sure I can give a fully complete answer this time, but I did want to mention that for folks, who are not intimately familiar with NIH, basically NIH is really divided into what they call their extramural programs. So basically that's where they give grant money to typically researchers at universities, that could be researchers at other research institutions as well. I would say about 90% of their budget is done in extramural grants, okay? They also have their own, what they call intramural program. So they basically, this is their own staff scientists, and this constitutes about 10% of the overall NIH budget. So it's a relatively small portion of their total work, I would say. And so they have their intramural programs, and so, you know, these are kind of two areas where NIH can get involved. As far as applying for extramural grants, I can tell you that, you know, AQMD does not have the capacity to help with that kind of grant application. That, again, is typically done with folks at a university, and certainly, I think anyone can go and ask, researchers who, work in this kind of area and who do this kind of research to apply for grants. Typically, they are very happy to apply for grants because they also rely on grant funding. So that is, I would say, a very good opportunity. And then as far as the intramural programs, again, if you want, I can call them and have a conversation with them. But I also overwhelmingly heard that this community does not trust me, so I don't know if you really want me to be your middleman, or you can just call them directly. That's perfectly fine too. So next, there are some questions about the status of the UCLA research conducted by Dr. Mike Jarrett. So I know it says AQMD staff. I reached out to Mike Jarrett. And there were two things that he was working on related to Porter Ranch. One was the work that was done for public health in conjunction with UCLA, and that report is currently with LA County Public Health and being reviewed and hopefully finalized. And then there's another portion of the work, and Dr. Jarrett had indicated that that analysis is still in progress, so he doesn't have results to share as of yet. And then there was also a request to follow up with other experts. So, this kind of like flows a little bit into the next step. So the plan is to convene the Health Study Technical Advisory Group, right? So that is a group of experts, including representatives from agencies, researchers from universities, and also the 2 members that were selected by the community. As far as other follow-up with experts, again, because of the concerns around radiation and with EPA, doing radiation work, I did follow up with some folks with knowledge of radiation from US EPA, just to kind of give them some information about the feedback and the concerns that we heard. Again, there was a suggestion to follow up with the Water Board. I did follow up with the State Water Board. I have not yet followed up with the Regional Water Board when it comes to runoff issues, but State Water Board, I know there was some concern about drinking water contamination. So again, I did relay some of the community concerns that were heard. And then finally, next steps. Again, we want to convene the Health Study Technical Advisory Group, and all of this information will be shared with the Technical Advisory Group. We'll have a meeting discussion. I do want to mention that the Technical Advisory Group meetings are not closed door. They are open. They are open to the public. So they are open to the public. They have not been scheduled yet. So just don't worry if you haven't heard anything about them yet, because they have not yet been scheduled. But the intention is to schedule them. And we want to convene to discuss and prioritize the scope and hopefully get an RFP out. And so, again, my intention is to try to move forward with this health study, because I personally think it doesn't do any good to kind of sit there when you have $1 million that you can spend, and I know that there is a desire to get more money. We are trying to reach out to other agencies to see what the possibilities are, but certainly we do not have a monopoly on trying to get money for the health study. I think certainly other folks are capable of doing that as well, and certainly it is our hope that folks in this community will be our partners. So, but that's all I had.
Thank you.
All right.
But I think this microphone needs to go back there, right?
I'm sorry?
Oh, the microphone needs to go back there. And then maybe she can use ours.
Yes, please, that'd be good. And do you know the sound system? Well, no, it's just too loud. There's a panel on the wall. Hello? Still, can you lower it? I can't see you. Can't see. There, could you put that? See if it's steady with it. What? Your guess is as good as mine.
Try it and see.
Can you see something? It's off. It's off.
Check, wanna check?
Testing, testing,
Check.
testing. Now it's working. Is it better or no?
Yeah,
Well, as long as it doesn't.
Testing, testing.
there you go. It sounds pretty good.
We'll give it a shot.
Okay.
All right. If you'd like to come up to the mic and, by the row, and so I'm going to set the time. I'm going to set it for 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Got it.
I have 30 minutes, so
Because the lights are gonna go off?
yes,
Okay.
there you go. Go ahead.
All right, what was your name again?
Joe K. Gosh.
Joe?
Joe K. Gosh.
Joe K. Gosh. All right, so I appreciate you coming back, and thank you. And at the beginning.
Can you turn on the mic? Can you turn on the mic?
Okay, testing, okay. All right, thank you, Joe, for coming back. I noticed the deputy didn't come with you. At the beginning of your presentation, I felt that it was very condescending towards our community. I just wanted to let you know, and I feel very offended to that. So I just wanted to let you know. But besides that, when I was at the meeting on the 14th, December 14th, and on more than 5 occasions, I have them on the tape where they were, the deputy stated, we can come back here as often as you want. And then he said, should we have it at the board meeting like this? And as it got later and more people were having so many problems and issues, he said, do you think it will be the proper, I have the exact thing. Is the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council the right venue for this? And he paused. And he goes, or shall we do another meeting? And so I'm requesting an AQMD meeting, independent from the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council, as soon as you can. And we asked you at the last meeting, maybe you could bring some people that could answer the questions, and I noticed that you went over everything that was recorded. So, like what you recorded on all the sheets, and you gave us what we all sat through, and I understand that, and I heard you said you made a few phone calls, but wasn't this meeting tonight to find out where we were going to go with this? Or I'm kind of confused because you went over exactly everything. And by the way, my father died of kidney cancer, and I mentioned it that night. So kidney, if you could add that to your list. And your department, the AQMD, one of your deputies came out to do a complaint against SoCal Gas, and they were told that they turned off their air monitoring systems when it started to elevate. And they are investigating that right now, she told us. So I don't know if you guys talk to each other, but her name's Marianne Jung, I believe. I can give you her name. Mary, she came out. And we all, I have it looks like it's an auto check. It says Jung, but I don't think that's correct. I'll get you the name, her name. I have her phone number too. But, so I just want to make it, could you ask whoever comes out with you, so someone that can also, like more than just one person, so you can, like you did, answer questions that we will have about what you're going to do.
So specific questions about compliance or?
No, all I got tonight was that you read back everything that we gave you. And you read it back, and I understand and I appreciate that you have a whole list of things that we wanted, but what's the next step? I mean, you said you made a couple phone calls, but I haven't gotten any, well, where are we going from here?
Right, so the next
Yes, what's the next step?
Again, the next step is to try to convene the health study technical advisory advisory group in order to take all this input that was received
Right.
and get it into a scope that will go into an RFP.
Okay, because I thought that's what tonight was. We were going to be talking about, like, so I was mistaken. All right, good. Thank you. And if you could note that if we could have another AQMD meeting with the public invited, independent,
For the purpose of,
for the purpose of when you release what you found out of this from the scope. Okay?
once, basically, after the health study technical advisory group meets, we'd
Right.
like a report back to
Yes.
the community.
To an independent meeting.
Will do.
Thank you.
We're taking notes.
Matt?
Hi, Joe Kay, thank you for coming back. So at the last meeting in December, which was pretty contentious, I think we all realized that the root of the problem of this $1 million goes back to the Board of Governors of the AQMD. And many people had questions of you guys that were here that aren't privy to anything that happens with the Board of Governors, but we asked repeatedly that you find out why there's only $1 million, what happened that there's only $1 million. Is there another way that AQMD could get and be part of the $8.5 million, or we needed answers.
From them. We needed answers from them, and did you guys bring back anything from them in response to those questions?
It's on. Okay. So I do want to mention that we did relay the community's request to them. Clearly, I'm not a board member, we don't have board members present, but I did want to mention that I did relay the request. As far as, answers, again, I'm still not privy to them. Closed session is closed session. Nothing is supposed to come out of closed session. So, in terms of the decision, the specifics of that decision making, I do not know, and quite honestly, I don't think it would be something that anyone would say anything about because it is supposed to be closed. As far as, contacting the board members, I understand the neighborhood council sent a letter to our chairman. I can't remember if other board members were on that letter as well, but I know it was addressed to our chairman. Most of our board members, the overwhelming majority of our board members are elected officials. You probably know how to get in contact with them.
So aside from what went on in the meeting that they can't talk about, what about other money via AQMD besides $1 million?
So as far as any other money being allocated toward the health.
Besides the penny ante stuff that you're talking about piecemealing together here? Because there was $8.5 million that they did get from SoCal Gas.
Right, so that would be a decision that the board would have to make.
Right, did you bring anything back about that? Because we asked that question then, last time.
I do not have any further information about that, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. I will not get upset. I will not yell at you. I will speak calmly, but I will ask questions that may be uncomfortable for some people in the room, and I wish they didn't take it that way. Just after the interests of my community and my family. Very simple. Okay, so that's where this is coming from. So you talk about trust, and I have to earn trust with my clients every day. And the first rule I have is I never lie. The other rule I have is I give them what they ask for, even if I disagree with it, because I have to build rapport and trust with them. Okay, so let's go through just a few things. We went at length in our last meeting, and there was over 100 items put on the board. Some of them we've already talked about, so we can go quickly. There was supposed to be a discussion about AQMD going out, taking the initiative to get additional funding, yet you have nothing to come back to us with. Where is the AQMD leadership? We asked for it repeatedly. We understand you're on the epidemiology side, okay? We asked repeatedly for someone in the leadership to come here and explain to us how is it that AQMD, who's supposed to be support and looking out for our well-being, accepted a $1 million deal when $40 million was scoped. How is that acting in the best interest of the public? It's not. Build trust, answer questions like that. Where's the outline from that $40 million? This was also requested. The outline of the scope of what that health study would include, the proper one, so that this community can make an informed decision about what is best for us. Again, not delivered, trust. This is very short notice for this meeting. Very short notice for this meeting. Where's the representation from thousands of people that were impacted by the Aliso blowout? We're a very, very small percentage of that. You want to build trust? Talk to the entire community, not a fraction and not confined to a timer. Deal with the issues. Okay, I do have a question I think you can answer. Would you say right now, in your professional opinion, that Aliso Canyon is safe? I'm not asking you to say it causes a particular, I'm not asking you if it causes leukemia. Okay, I'm asking you, from what you know and what you don't know, is the facility safe?
So I will say that this is something that actually, I think we actually did answer in the December meeting, but I'll say it again.
Please.
That, again, okay, well, so I will caveat one thing. We study the air. You know, I'm not an expert in water, not an expert in well safety, soil. Okay, so just talking about the air, right? Based on all of the information, all of the data, the emissions information, you know, all the measurements that were done by our agency and others, we could not figure out that there was a tie between the symptoms that we heard about and the air data that was collected. And therefore, that is why there was a push to do a health study, because we couldn't explain it with existing data. Could not explain it with existing data. So there was an open question, and hence the desire for a health study.
Right, so you can't, I mean, technically, if the symptomatology goes beyond what you sampled in the air, yet the symptoms persist, something was either, maybe the testing wasn't adequate, maybe there's something else that the testing wasn't within the scope of the testing, or there indeed is something else that's affecting this community, therefore people are getting sick.
Right. So the reason you do a study is because there's something you don't know. If it's something that you know, well.
That'd be redundant.
Exactly.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. But here's the dilemma. Your agency has given the ammunition to SoCal Gas to say the facility is safe. Yet it's impossible for you guys to say that. And I can hand you an article from the LA Times where it quotes South Coast Air Quality Management and other health organizations demonstrate that Porter Ranch is safe. This is a false statement. It cannot be true because, to your point, you do not have the data to come to that conclusion. Yet, your agency allows SoCal Gas to intimate that you guys are approving this facility and the surrounding communities safe. That's a lie. It's just not true. It's not plausible.
Then where's this going? Your time is up.
Okay, where this is going, and I really appreciate your time, and I'm sorry that your bosses put you in this position. It's totally unfair. Maybe this just comes with the territory. Okay? It's not fair to you. It's not. Bring that back. Write that down. So, what everything points to, including the constraints of this meeting, is the AQMD's effort to control its interface with this community and not look out for the best interests of this community. You're not building trust. You're not giving us full. You're not coming back with the things that we requested. So one can only conclude that the objectives are in alignment with something else. And I noticed SoCal Gas is here. I didn't even know why they're here. Okay, they shouldn't be here. This is a community meeting. They're free to be here. It's a free country. Okay, but my point is, the AQMD is acting in a captured capacity and is not looking after the interests of this community. $1 billion is unexplained. You're not coming back with the questions that we asked. You're not being forthcoming, and and you wonder why we don't trust. Start acting in the interest of the community without constraints of time limits. Come have an informed, intellectual, non-emotional conversation with us to find out what's going on, why we're sick, and how this could never happen again. I have one more thought, and I'll leave. Thank you, everyone, for being so generous. Do you guys do research on a regular basis?
Health research?
Any kind of research. Do you ever try to commission what propellants from an aerosol are more harmful than another so you can build your regulations? Do you ever?
We fund, so we don't conduct the research in-house.
You farm it out.
We fund some limited research.
Okay.
Yes.
So you guys have at least 4 of these gas facilities in your district. Okay? You got $1 million. Shame on the guys that made that decision. But it's your responsibility to know the impact in the air, what these types of facilities do. It is in your best interest as a district to invest in investigating the health risks of such facilities. Therefore, you should invest way more than $1 million as core to what you guys do every day. Else, you're a captive regulator and following the SoCal Gas mandates because just follow the money. And I'm sorry your bosses put you in this position. Sam, thank you for being generous with the time.
Hi, thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And I do feel bad that your bosses have put you in a predicament. I think that you may not have known what you were coming into last time we all were here. I ditto what my fellow community members saying, that, you know, I have all those same questions. And for me, you know, it's my health. I'm affected by this. On Sunday, my friend called me and said, hey, let's go, blah, 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 you know, hang out for a minute. This is something I would love to do, and I couldn't get out of bed. Everything hurt. I can't even hardly see anymore. Everything is blurry. I have diarrhea most days, almost every day. I went away to Italy the first day, nothing. The whole 3 weeks I was gone, nothing. I come back here the next morning, diarrhea. And it's affecting us. And I know we're getting caught up in, you know, this and that and the politics and the agendas and whatever, but I plead you, I urge you, in the end, please don't forget that we are sick. That's why we're fighting. That's why we're upset. We're fighting for ourselves and our community. I speak to people on the phone and they're too sick to come to a meeting. So I'm standing here representing those people too, because some days I'm not well enough to come and stand for myself and my community. Fortunately today I was able to, and I implore you, please remember, in the end, we are here talking about our health. I don't want to have to move out of this community. You know, I'm getting up at 8. I'm up there. But in order to be well, to feel okay, I have to leave here. I have to give up my home in which I thought, you know, my husband and I would retire in, that my grandchildren would come to. It's all one floor, there's only one step. That was on purpose. So, you know, I had plans, and, you know, I know things happen, but this doesn't seem like the right thing to have happen, because it's not just happening to me, it is happening to thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, a million people, who knows, because this just goes out. And unless somebody does a study about how people are feeling, not just here, but further out, you'll never know how far it goes. Anyway, I took up to 2 minutes, but I just urge you, please have another meeting separate so we can really just talk and get to know each other and understand and have some questions answered. So please, I urge you to another meeting as soon as possible.
Sorry, thank you so much for being here for your testimony. Can I ask one quick question? One quick question. If we were to have another meeting, what would you like to see in that meeting? What would be the purpose?
Answers for questions that we asked. You know, we had a lot of questions that we asked at the first meeting where you came, and you know, they're not being answered, so it would be nice to have some questions answered. I mean, you can go back and see the tape and you'll see what the questions were if you've forgotten, you know.
I don't have the tape, but I thought somebody was gonna post it.
We'll volunteer a small group to work with a small group from your office.
You're gonna post it?
Compile all the questions. I'll be glad to sit in them.
Oh, okay, great.
Would that work?
Sure.
Would you be willing to have someone from your office help compile a list of all the open issues?
Compile the list of all the open issues from the December
You guys
meeting.
took whiteboards, it was over 100 items.
Yeah.
I thought you guys were going to compile it. I'm being generous by
So I would say when I went back and reviewed the questions, a lot of those included questions that we did answer at the time. So I tried to address some of the questions that I could answer here, and some of the other ones would be, you know, again, above my pay grade.
Well, yeah, but that's the point. You want trust. Where is your leadership? And come back to this community. We were the impact. You guys extracted $8.5 million from the gas company. $1 million is going to the health study. There's plenty more budget within your organization that your bosses, your leadership have control over, and if they don't step up and address the largest methane leak in U.S. history and the consequences from it, one can only conclude they are captive regulators acting on the behalf of SoCal Gas and not the community impacted. And
Right.
shame on you guys.
Greg, you had your time. Better finish.
Thank you.
We'll work on that.
Hi, so having kind of lousy or simple health study actually really, it's not helping, it's actually hurt the community. That's kind of happened in the beginning of the blowout. You know, AQMD took samples. I was there, I was outside. It was horrible, like you know, there was crude oil, you know, everywhere. I inhale, I taste it, I burn it, my lips burn. Everything was horrible. I got sick right after it. And then they came, it's like they couldn't really find it. You know, I saw the canister. They couldn't really catch everything. And you know, another air test, they couldn't catch it. Health department came to our house, took samples, dust and everything. They said your house is clean. And I was sick of health, really sick, especially during the blowout in the last 2 years, really sick. So obviously they can't really, you know, any data that sample that picking is not really picking the important thing that we're looking for. And part of the reason, because you guys don't know what chemical is coming out, and that's not picked, and that's really important, than just, you know, trying to find out from whatever the information that you guys have right now. So, you know, the information you guys have right now, or trying to do in general knowledge is not working. And yes, just that's what I want to say. I was sick, and I was told your house is really clean, and that's not the case.
Do you understand that this gas blowout has affected the whole North San Fernando Valley?
So my understanding was it was affected the Port Ranch area the most, but some of the gas went further.
I live in Granada Hills myself. Right now, my husband, for last 3 months, has been suffering from a mysterious illness, which none of the doctors can find out with all the tests they have done. So, and my daughter's been affected, I've been affected, I'm going through hell right now, and I don't understand why we need to bring this issue to this board just for Porter Ranch. This is not a Porter Ranch issue. This is whole San Fernando Valley health issue. People in Granada Hills, people in Reseda, people in Chatsworth, they're all, you guys are insulting the other communities by only discussing it here at this place. You need to have your own meeting and let public come and listen to what you have to say. And plus, we can read. You already sent whatever you just read from it to us. You didn't bring any new information. All the questions we had, 100 questions, none of them was answered tonight. And this is so wrong in so many ways. I hope you understand. I hope you guys wake up and see this is not right the way you're handling it. We have been backstabbed by you guys and health department, and now we're being backstabbed by our own community. This is not right. And on that 8.5 million that you guys got, why are you saving the 7.5 million? What have you done? Why do you deserve that money? We are sick. We are the ones who have suffered. We are the ones who are still sick. And you guys are saving that 7.5 million and only giving 1 million? Do you believe in health department? Health department themselves, who are in charge of health, told us if they do the $1 million health study, that is giving the gas company the power to say nothing is going on, because there's no way you can do a decent health study with $1 million for this community.
So let me ask you this. Is it the desire not to have any health study and then just...
We want to have a right health study done. You guys, the AQMD has their own budget. Even if you hadn't gotten that $1 million or 8.7, you and health department together should have enough money to do a decent health study. You don't want to spend 1 penny of your own money. You're just waiting for gas company to pay your money and then pocket it yourself. This is not right. And also Department of Health, county, we all have money, we are paying taxes. This is the biggest methane release of this history of this nation. Nobody knows what has happened. You don't know what happened. Department of Health doesn't know what happened. This has never happened before. And this is the way it's been handled. People are just dropping dead in this neighborhood. Just ask all these people, how many people have been dead from their families? My own husband, I had to call 911. He hasn't, honestly, nobody can figure out what's wrong with him. And he's going to be next. And I don't appreciate this.
Thank you for coming here. I'm new to this area, so I apologize if anything I ask is duplicate. This is all new to me. Thank you very much for showing the information. Being new here, I'm starting to show some of those symptoms, so I'm thinking what I thought was a long bout of flu might not be that, so I'll be curious to follow how this goes. If you do the health study and you find that there's something that's in the air, is there anything that then can be done, or does that mean everybody would just have to simply leave? I mean, is there something that can, depending on anything you found, could make it better, cleaner?
I think so. So I'll answer it in two ways. So in health studies in general, for me, having conducted health studies in academia, typically it's just about the specific research questions and getting the results out and making sure that people understand what the findings were and how to interpret them and so on. There's usually, again, speaking from the academic side, no additional follow-up. Now, if there is something that we as the air pollution regulators can do, I guess in terms of if there was some previously unknown emission that was found to be causing a number of health symptoms, then obviously that thing could be regulated, right? So again, if there was something that was within the kind of scope of our agency, then yes, there is some follow-up action that could result from that.
Did I understand correctly when you were saying you looked at the air data? That we talked about that, say you looked at the air data and you did not find anything in the data that would correlate to the symptoms of illness that people seem to have, right? Okay, so then you said perhaps it might be in the water. it might be in the soil. It might be. Is there any way to integrate? Is there anybody looking at the water? I mean, obviously that's not your purview, but who is looking that it may be the soil, it may be the water, you know, and have a whole integrated approach to looking at the issue. If you say that the data doesn't correlate between the air and the illness, then maybe it's coming from someplace else. Well, how can we look for that someplace else? How can we pay for a soil study? How can we pay for a water study? Is that part of the health plan? And it may be completely out of your district, I mean out of purview, but it looks as though it's an integrated problem.
Right. So, absolutely, sorry, maybe you can finish your time and then I'll answer after, then I'll take your time.
That's all right. You're good.
Okay.
Esau says I'm good.
Okay. So yeah, the health study is not limited to air, right? So there's certainly these other elements that could be, part of the health study. Could be like indoor environmental sampling, could be the wipes, could be soil sampling, various types of environmental sampling. So that could all be kind of informative to the health study depending on what kind of are the priorities from the community, from the technical advisory group. As far as kind of other experts, so absolutely. So on the technical advisory group, obviously there are experts in air, but there are also folks there who have experts in other expertise in other areas as well. So for example, we have someone from OEHA who's a toxicologist, and so OEHA as an agency, they do air, water, and soil. Right. So
because I think that would give answers to people. If we say we tested the soil and this is what we found, we tested the water and this is what we found.
Right. Right. So and I do know that there were some soil tests that were done at the time. I know I believe the health department did some. I'm wanting to say so. Typically, it's DTSC who does the soil sampling. That's usually the people who have the most expertise in soil contamination. So DTSC could be another agency that we could reach out to as well on this. So.
But is that something that you would take the lead in for these other studies, or is that something that just will fall off because no one has, you know what I mean? You're one area, but the soil is over here and the water's over there, and nobody is integrating to look at it from a top-down issue.
Right. So I think it's a really good idea to have the advisory group have kind of like that collective expertise, and like again based on kind of what we've heard from the community. For example, there was concern about radiation, right? So the question is, should we get someone there that's got expertise in radiation? We actually do have someone from the US EPA as part of the technical advisory group. So I asked, do you have radiation experts that you can tap into at EPA? Do you have the contacts? Yes, absolutely. So I felt pretty good about that front, right? If it's a desire to have someone from the water board, I can see if I can get someone from the water board to join the advisory group as well.
Because I just think it's certainly an acceptance on your part that you have to realize, and the community does, that the problem is bigger than AQMD. That even if you've got all the answers from AQMD, you're not going to get all the answers.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes,
For the 2.5 years or so, I've had headaches. I mean, every single day. I've had nosebleeds, and even when there was a place to go and they were going to bring the air and do something with our house, I don't know exactly what he did, but I know that when my husband cleaned out our patio, it took him 2.5 hours to do the floor because it was so sticky, and no one ever came in to ask us if we wanted to get our house cleaned. But this is this is getting really, really ridiculous. I mean, we've been here 47 years, and to go through all this time is ridiculous. It's just, it needs to be shut down.
Francis, I need you to stay. Any other questions? All right, thank you. I'd like to take a 10-minute break, and then if we don't have quorum, just have public comments on items not on the agenda, if anybody wishes to. And we close that, and we can go home. We will, 10 minutes, we will conduct item 12. 10 to 8, so,
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. I won't recuse.
you want to recuse? Okay. All right. I can't.
It's in the
Francis?
committee. We'll ask him in the
On the
committee.
committee, okay. All right.
In item 13. Okay.
What order are we going in?
Here, bear with me, I'm collecting my wits for a second. If you don't mind, I'd like to have item 12 before we proceed. All right. Item 12 is a discussion and possible action regarding the presentation that and the planned health study that we heard before, at least for those that heard it. I'm going to open the floor for the board. If they want to raise a point, make a comment, discuss something, then I will open it for the stakeholders to make a comment to the board or ask, something they want the board to know about, and then we'll close it after 30 minutes. 8:30. Yeah. Okay, so. Anybody would like to say something? Hassan.
Okay. First, I would like to thank our guest for her presentation and for calling us in. And I appreciate all the stakeholders showing up and their comments. And I highly recommend a AQMD meeting outside the bounds of the Porter Ranch Neighborhood Council. So that this way, it's your meeting, the stakeholders can address, and you could answer them freely. And this way, even if members of the board would like to be part of the stakeholder discussion, wouldn't be bound by sitting on this end. Thank you.
Susan?
Couple things. I know a lot of people have asked about the legal discussion or the discussion with the lawyers that has gone, behind closed doors and that none of us are privy to. And I'm not sure what continuing to ask that question does. Because if you're privy to it, you're privy to it. If you know, you're not. But anyway, that's just one point. The other thing is I'm very interested in item 20, slide 24, how to get NIH involved. Researchers and community can apply for extramural grants. I would be interested in working, I know you offered, to work with you on that. Is that a real possibility?
So I don't think we have the capacity to be applying for grants, for extramural grants, but for researchers at universities, I think that is a big part of what they do, is apply for NIH grants. So to identify one or more researchers to work with, I think that would be one way to try to get NIH grants.
Okay, so I'm sorry, extramural was the universities, but the other one, intramural.
Intramural. So intramural, again, it's up to NIH whether they would allocate money for their intramural programs to do a project here, to do that kind of study here. So, I can call them and ask, or you guys can call them and ask.
We would have the expertise to really sell that to them? Do you know who would have the expertise to really say, hey, this would be a community that would be a really good study for the NIH? Who?
I would suggest that we need an academic person who does toxicology and epidemiological research, and if we can convince that person, if she or he would partner with the community to submit a grant request, that's really the way to do it.
And you'd start with CSUN, wouldn't you? Go to CSUN.
CSUN, UCLA, UC Irvine, who knows?
Yeah.
But that's what it takes.
Okay, is that
Fair enough.
realistic?
Is that a correct question? Answer.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's certainly possible, you know, reach out to the researchers. I would note, so I think very highly of CSUN, but, CSUN is not considered what's called an R1 university, right? So they don't, that means, so R1 universities means those are the ones that are primarily research focused, right? CSUN is primarily teaching focused.
Okay. You need a UC. University of
So,
California.
again, UC is one kind of R1, there are, many others as well, right? So.
Anything else you'd like to bring up? Okay.
Yes, I would also like AQMD to have a town hall meeting open to everyone, not excluding board members. We all have questions, but we feel we are not allowed to ask certain questions being on the board. So I would love for AQMD to set up a big town hall, not only for Porter Ranch, North or Chatsworth, but just outreach to everybody in the valley, 20, 30 mile out, and let everybody come in. A lot of people outside the area do have concerns as well. It was probably mentioned today when I was in here, but yeah, open, like almost a open forum type question answers will be great. That's it.
Jason?
So I wanted to mention, you mentioned the Regional Water Control Board. Have you reached out to them yet?
I haven't, I've only reached out to the state water board, drinking water division.
Are you aware of the investigation going on
What specifically?
with the water? They did, there's an investigation with the Regional Water Control Board doing, they're waiting right now for the root cause analysis to finish before they do the underground testing, but they've done some surface water testing. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, well, definitely look into it.
For what? The regional water, it's like the LA Water Board, I think, there's a gentleman, Adam Tang, is the one who is handling that. So I suggest that you go to GeoTracker and you can look it up. I can even give you the information.
Yeah, you have his contact information?
Yeah, absolutely. And I concur with the need to have more outreach for this type of meeting. This is very small turnout. If you went to the Dogger hearing, I don't know if you went to or some of the other hearings, I mean, we had 300 people or something. So with proper outreach, and also it should be in it shouldn't be exclusive to Porter Ranch. I think that when you put it under the umbrella of the neighborhood council, that's really not, it impacts people all over, Chatsworth, Granada, all over, many people are affected. So it's like you'd have to have this meeting at each of the neighborhood councils. Granada Hills North, Granada Hills South, Northridge West, Northridge East, Chatsworth. Why not at all those councils? Doesn't make sense. So.
Yes, Jeff.
Root cause analysis for what?
The root cause analysis is the. You want to explain that?
It's the investigation into the cause of the well failure.
There you go.
Of the well fed?
The well failure.
Okay. So why does the water district?
No,
what
the
I
water
said-
district is waiting for that to finish, so then they can do.
They have to drill up there, and right now they have all the rigging equipment up there. And they can't drill down, so it's on extension right now, basically.
Anything else, Tracy? No, I'm good. David?
Since I missed the first part of our meeting this evening, I wholly concur with the rest of the board. We're good.
Okay. It's no secret that the community was immensely disappointed with how this study got scaled down. But we are here, and we're trying to figure out what it is we're going to get out of it. And I want to go on the record again that this was an information session that Neighborhood Council got out of the AQMD in terms of understanding where you are. And I do hope that you will consider the community's request for a town hall meeting. This was not intended to be a town hall meeting at all. It was an update meeting to the Neighborhood Council. So there's a lot of issues we are dealing with, and there's a lot of emotion around all these issues. But I do appreciate your engagement, and I hope you will continue to be engaged with us. That's all I have to say. Second. Anything else from the board? All right, we're going to open the floor. Would you like to step up to the mic and I'd like to finish this item in 15 minutes.
Just real quick.
Go ahead. You can turn it on.
There it is. Okay. Just real quick. So it sounds like everybody's on board with the idea that we have a town hall meeting. Is there any particular authority, individual, elected, something that we should maybe as a community request to help facilitate such a town hall? Any suggestions?
Yeah, I would like the AQMD to reach to CD12, which oversees the neighborhood councils in all the North Valley. And if CD12 would be willing to engage in organizing a town hall, that would very much fall within their capacity to outreach and falls within their capacity to organize.
Thank you.
Would you like to step up to the mic now?
Yeah, so the idea of not doing health study at all has been floated before. My comments about that are the AQMD are the ones that could have, not you guys personally, AQMD are the ones that could have fined SoCal Gas $250,000 a day times 111 days to the tune of $27 million. And they ended up settling, and then their own panel said we need 35 to 40 million for a health study, and that same AQMD then said, okay, only 1 million. So the AQMD even conducting the health study is highly suspect in my book. And I think, and a lot of people said this before me, that a bad health study that's underfunded isn't going to be able to find what it would need to find. So at the end of the day, they're not going to find anything that would, in effect, exonerate SoCal Gas. And it'd be another notch in SoCal Gas belt saying, look, there's nothing wrong in Porter Ranch. So either no health study or take that million and really focus it to something that can actually be done well and good and proper for $1 million, as minuscule as it may be, something that hasn't been studied yet in this whole world of stuff we're dealing with, but something that's totally doable for $1 million. Studying this health crisis is not going to be covered by $1 million, and everyone's made that clear already.
All the experts. Diane, would you like to step up?
I'm reflecting back to the very last, the final hearing, AQMD hearing in Diamond Bar. And John Tebow and I were the only residents who bothered to show up. Susan did, and Matt did, everyone did 2 days prior. And we're so grateful for that. But I think if the entire community showed up like they do at these Dogger hearings, we would have stood a better chance. And just to be clear, it was not AQMD's hearing board that settled for $1 million. It wasn't Mr. Camarina and Bird and et cetera, Prusak. It was AQMD's governing board. Because right after that settlement, Darrell Park went down to the governing board meeting. It was later that day or the next day. It was immediate. And he called them out. He said, you're the one who settled for a $1 million study. When the lawyers, the hearing board, well, there was a doctor, senator, et cetera, they knew we needed that $40 million. Not only that, I sat next to Katie Butler at the initial hearing when Susan was there, and Matt, and I think perhaps Maureen. And even Dr. Rangan, Cyrus Rangan, Belomo, Katie Butler, she is the epidemiologist for LA County Public Health. These are our health officials who stood behind the $40 million. John Tebow taped it. It's on YouTube. You can watch those testimonies. So just to keep in mind how serious we need that money, thank you very much for reconsidering.
Thank you. Greg?
A very brief statement. I want to thank you guys. I will freely say it is much easier to sit in the row back here and come up here and say whatever you feel. You guys don't have that latitude every time. You have a decorum that you have to abide by. And I have immense respect for each and every one of you here. And I want to thank you, because no one's getting rich being on the neighborhood council. You get rich through the character and the quality of person that you are for being here and dedicating time. We should recognize that as often as possible. When we see you in the grocery store, we should wave and just say thanks. So thank you very much.
Helen?
I'm not saying if, I'm saying when you have the next meeting, the town hall. Could you please bring somebody to the meeting that can actually answer questions for us? Not just look at us, just, I don't know, just whoever can answer questions, that's the person who needs to come to the meeting, please. Because we do have questions and we want answers. Everything I said, I didn't get one word from you.
Anybody else? You know, I wanted to make one comment. For what it's worth, I don't think this is a surprise to anybody who knows how these things work. But in case someone keeps asking why, the bottom line is, when attorneys get involved, especially government attorneys, they have caseloads this high. The best thing they can do is settle, so they can move on to the next case. The attorneys settled, the governing board signed off, and then they handed it to staff. You know that's how it works. You know the county will settle, you know the city will settle. That's how government attorneys work. Like it or hate it, that's how they function. The question is, are we going to keep yelling at the wrong people? That's it.
They are sending the representative here, and that's why they're getting all this yelling.
I understand, but you know that it got signed in ink on a paper that attorneys went for it.
Yes.
We're done. They cannot change that signature. We have to look for more funding, but we're not going to explain anymore why they signed it. They signed it because they wanted to settle, and they settled it. That's how attorneys function.
Exactly. I know, my daughter is an attorney, so I know how it works.
Okay.
But this is not just any case. This is the biggest environmental disaster in the nation. Well, hold on. Don't look at me like that. And also, we are paying taxes. All these other agencies, even without this settlement, they should come out and help us. Don't you agree on that? Department of Health needs to come out and, what's their job? What is their job? To protect us. What's AQMD's job? To protect us. They're just sitting there, getting money from gas company, and pocket the money themselves, 7.5 million, and giving us 1 million. I mean, if you are truly a researcher, like my other daughter is a researcher, she's getting her PhD. If you're truly a researcher, I feel like you would be insulted by giving a project to you as big as it is for just $1 million. Do you honestly think you can do any decent health study on all these people with $1 million? To be honest. No, let her answer. Please let her answer. Don't cover for her. Can you answer?
I've done more on less.
More on less? You told us on last meeting your own last project was like 80 million on what? Isn't that? Well, we have it.
Thousands.
No, we have it on the record what you said.
Alan,
Yes,
please,
yes.
this is a conversation between stakeholders and the board. Please.
I'm a stakeholder.
Yes, so have a discussion with us,
Okay.
okay?
Well, you
You
said
asked
this is
her-
public comments, and this is the public comments, I'll tell you.
And that's great.
Next time, I want to have answers. I don't want somebody just come
And
there,
you've asked
read
her
the
that-
paper for me. I can
You've
read.
asked her that during the session they spoke. This is the session we
They
are
never
speaking.
answered me.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But you don't always get the answers to question, but you make the question. You make the
I
question.
can try.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think everybody should go to Diamond Bar at every governing board meeting and give public comment about this issue.
I have you have seen me at Diamond Bar, haven't you? I have
We've
been
seen
there.
each other, yes,
Yes.
many times.
So I do not
I'm not
appreciate
saying-
somebody saying people are not showing up.
I don't-
have been at most hearings.
I'm not saying about the past, I'm talking about the future.
Yes, that's what we need.
That's
to do.
all I'm
But you're
saying.
sick, you're suffering.
I
and what are
understand
things
that.
to do?
All I'm saying
We
is,
are tired of Islam. It's been more than 2 years.
let's comment to the right people who hold the
Yes,
strength.
I feel like this is the right person representing AQMD.
These are the folks that are going to be leading the health study, managing the health study, that's it.
That's why I'm AQMD representative here, the gentleman in suit and the other ones too.
All right.
Same.
Anybody else? Okay. We're on time, 8:30, thank you. We're moving to item. Without objection, I'd like to give the floor to the public comment before board comment. Would that be okay?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Francis, you'll like me still at the end of the meeting? Thank you. I'd like to open the floor for public comment on any item not on the agenda in case people want to go home. But any item not on the agenda. Right, Lane?
Well, let me see if I can be clear. That's okay.
I'm not sure if this is clear, but I completely agree. Hearings are imperative. People don't like it because they have better things to do, and then you turn on Facebook and watch their vacations and everything else. So thank you for reiterating the importance of showing up at hearings and governing board, not just regular AQMD. And, you know, I can just feel the vibes back here. If you don't show up, you can't go around saying, oh, hundreds of people are getting sick. You got to bring those people. Eventually, tangibles are what's going to count, and that's going to be our loudest voice.
Any other comment on an item not on the agenda?